Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. It was around 8 or 9 months ago, on Saturday, August 24th, school had been in session for about 2 weeks, and I wanted to de-stress a little. I asked my friends, I'll call them Griffin and Broly, if they wanted to hop on Fortnite. My mom and sister were out shopping, my dad was working late, and I was bored. We finally got on to play around 8 p.m., but only after I burned a batch of pizza rolls I'd made beforehand. After a few rounds, I could tell my friends were getting tired of losing, so they got off after just an hour. I planned to lie down with my phone and go to bed. That was until I heard my 2 dogs barking outside. It's not unusual for them to bark, especially with people walking along the road, but I still looked out the window just to be sure. Seconds later, I heard our garage door open and shut. That usually means my dad is home, but I didn't see his van outside. In fact, he had texted me earlier saying he'd be working late. I walked downstairs into the dining room to get a better view. The driveway was completely empty. No people. No vehicles. I wasn't the type to go investigate, so I ran back upstairs and texted my family group chat to ask if anyone was home. I told my mom about the garage door, and she told me to turn off the lights, lock my bedroom door, and stay there until she got back. So I did just that. About 15 minutes later, I thought I heard our wooden floors creaking downstairs, like someone was trying to move quietly. I didn't have anything to use as a weapon, so I unclipped the boom arm from my microphone stand and crept to the upstairs balcony. I leaned over the railing, trying to spot anything suspicious. Then, stupidly, I called out, "Is anybody there?" Like someone would actually answer. Everything seemed fine, until I saw a large silhouette standing directly beneath the balcony. I panicked and ran to the nearest room with a door, which happened to be my small bathroom. The intruder must have known I saw him, because I immediately heard fast, loud footsteps thudding up the stairs as I locked the bathroom door behind me. I had stupidly left my phone in my bedroom, the room right next to me. After building up enough courage, I bolted out of the bathroom and into my bedroom, locking the door behind me. My sister's room was directly across the hall, and its door was open. I figured the intruder must have gone in there. I grabbed my phone and typed 911, ready to call, but then I noticed something. The storage room built into my wall was open, just slightly. Peeking through the narrow crevice was a single dark brown eye, staring right at me. The pure terror I felt in that moment is something I'll never forget. I ran. I bolted down the stairs and out the front door, sprinting up the hill to my neighbor's house. He was a police officer. He called for backup while I stayed with his wife, shaking. I told him exactly where the intruder had been hiding in my bedroom. A few minutes later, I ran back down the hill to see if the intruder had been caught. When I walked in, I saw a tall, skinny man with a gray beard and a dirty black coat being forced to the floor as my neighbor handcuffed him. I'm not allowed to be home alone anymore, and we've upgraded our home security since then. My family was just thankful I wasn't hurt, and grateful for our neighbor's bravery. I wouldn't wish an experience like that on anyone. Not even my worst enemy. I'm a manager at a mid-sized grocery store. I work 10-hour shifts, mostly overnight. At the time this happened, our store was dealing with staffing issues, every department was shorthanded and overworked, and overnight stocking was no exception. I usually had one guy who helped me 5 nights a week, but this was his day off, so I was completely alone. I got in at 10 p.m., and by 10:15, I was by myself. After running some numbers in the office, I started pulling out loads of boxes to the aisles to begin unpacking and stocking. Even though I had no help that night, everything still had to get done. So I worked hard and fast, I didn't even stop for a break. Around 2 a.m., a tapping sound suddenly echoed through the store. I stopped what I was doing and listened. It happened again. It sounded just like someone tapping on one of the front windows. I looked at my watch for the first time all night. It was 2 a.m. Time had flown by, but there was no reason anyone should be outside the store. I walked down the aisle to the front and quickly spotted someone outside. He was leaning against the window, trying to peer inside. When he saw me, he locked eyes and just stared. When I got close, I asked what he wanted. The man, who looked homeless, calmly said, "Open the door." His face was expressionless. No smile. Nothing. I told him we were closed and that he couldn't be here, then turned to walk away. That's when he suddenly started banging on the window, hard. Not tapping anymore, full-on pounding. I turned back and saw his fist pressed to the glass, his face filled with rage. Thinking the guy was unstable, I warned him I'd call the cops if he didn't leave. I even pulled out my phone to show I was serious. Only then did he back away from the window. He kept that furious look on his face as he slowly walked off into the parking lot. Once I saw him leave, I put my phone away and got back to work. We deal with a lot of unstable customers around here, so I didn't think much of it. I had work to do. Maybe 15 minutes later, after only stocking a small cart of boxes, I heard a sound echo through the store. It was a metallic snap or scrape, like something heavy breaking or being pried loose. I immediately dropped what I was doing and rushed to the front. No one was at the windows. Then I checked the entrance door. We use a revolving glass door with a bolt lock at the top to keep it sealed shut overnight. That bolt was gone. Not just unlocked, completely gone. I pushed the door, and it spun freely. Anyone could have walked right in. My stomach dropped. My face went cold. I knew I needed to call the police immediately. I turned to rush to the front office, and froze. That same man was right there. Just a few feet away. Inside the store. His face still twisted in that angry stare. I didn't even hesitate. I spun and ran out the revolving door. I could hear him chasing me. Just as I burst into the parking lot, an old van sped up to the front entrance, so fast it nearly hit me. But I didn't stop. I kept running full speed toward my car. When I got in and locked the doors, I looked around, but the man was no longer chasing me. The van, now with him inside, peeled out of the parking lot and disappeared. I called the police and spent the next few hours giving a statement and explaining everything. The next day, we reviewed the security footage. It wasn't the best quality, but we could clearly see the man breaking into the store. We're almost certain they were trying to lure me into that van, but we still don't know why. All I know is, if I hadn't reacted quickly, I might not be here to tell this story. This happened a few months ago while I was driving for DoorDash. I only do it as a side gig, maybe 10 to 15 hours a week. That night, I was just doing a couple of late orders since it was already around 1 a.m. when I picked up a small one that needed to be delivered to a business building across town. The address made that pretty clear. It wasn't unusual, overnight workers order food sometimes. When I pulled into the parking lot, though, it was completely empty. No cars at all. It didn't look like there was a lot behind the building either. I parked in a spot near the front and got out with the food. The place was definitely an office building of some kind, smaller than most, only 2 stories and not very wide. All the windows were dark, except for a single light near the front door. I walked up and checked the app, which had specific drop-off instructions: enter the main hallway and leave the bag outside room 232. Looking through the front door, I saw a long hallway with closed doors lining each side. I'd only ever delivered to specific room numbers at hotels before, so this was kind of new to me. I pushed on the door, it was unlocked, so I stepped inside. I expected to hear people working, moving around, or even talking. Instead, it was completely silent. The only sound was the faint buzz of overhead fluorescent lights as I walked past the first few rooms. All the room numbers were in the 100s, like 102 and 106. Since the delivery was for room 232, I figured it had to be on the second floor. In the middle of the hallway was a door that led to the stairwell. It was propped open with a wedge, but the stairwell lights were off. I stepped in and looked up the stairs. The whole stairwell was pitch black, no light coming from above, where room 232 was supposed to be. That's when I really started to feel uneasy. The silence was thick, and the darkness upstairs gave me chills. Normally, I followed delivery instructions exactly to get good reviews, but for the first time, I told myself this was too sketchy. I turned to step back out into the hallway, and just then, the door across from me opened. The lights inside that room were off too, but a man stepped out into the hallway. He was wearing regular street clothes and didn't look like an office worker at all. He stood in front of me and pointed past me toward the dark stairwell. 232 is up there, he said. I nodded, but I didn't move. Neither did he. He just stood there, staring at me with a strange expression, like he was holding back anger. It was tense. After a few seconds of silence, I dropped the bag on the ground and started walking quickly toward the exit. The man didn't follow me, but I heard his footsteps walk into the stairwell and start climbing the stairs just as I left the building. I got in my car and drove off. At the time, I didn't know what to make of it. I wondered if maybe I was overreacting, so I didn't call the police. But the next day, the police actually called me. Apparently, the office had reported a break-in, and when reviewing CCTV footage, they saw my car and license plate and tracked it back to me. They had footage of the intruders as well, and they called me in to ask if I knew anything about what happened. I didn't have much to tell them, but it turns out there were actually 3 people who broke in. One of them was the man I saw downstairs, but the other 2 were caught on camera hiding at the top of the stairs, seemingly waiting for me to come up. Disturbingly, several other food orders had been placed to that same office that night. All of the other drivers had done the smarter thing, leaving the food by the front door and not going inside. What could have happened if any of us had gone up those stairs is still unknown. Hopefully, the police find those 3 men before anyone becomes their victim. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.